Once again, it is Corey Lee here. I am actually here to tell you about a dream that I had before that I remember talking about with certain people. I actually posted this on YouTube before, but I took it down twice, and I had the same reason why I took it down twice. But the reason why I put it up again is because a certain person who is like one of my YouTube subscribers just kept repeatedly asking me to put it up. So I just really just kind of done it, but then like the Lord just kind of, I believe the Lord just kind of just kept telling me that it just wasn't really time yet. So I ended up taking it down. In fact, I ended up closing down that entire YouTube channel. But he kind of put me back in public ministry just recently, or he kind of just recently started me in public ministry, not really put me back because I was never really in it. And this time I'm gonna try to remember what I said in the last video, but I really just can't forget the dream. And it went a little something like this. So it was a dream that I had about the end times, like what things looked like and what things looked like in my life during the end times. Before I had the dream, like before I went to sleep, I don't know what I was doing. I think I might have been watching YouTube videos about some artificial intelligence thing that was coming out and stuff like that. So I didn't really have anything that induced the overall topic that I had to dream about. Like, you know how you think about something too much and then you end up having a dream about it. It wasn't really that particular thing. So what actually happened in this dream was, I remember being extremely frustrated. Like something frustrated the mess out of me. And I remember storming off and saying, "Forget it." And I was just real mad, and I was just storming off, just mad, and I don't want to call it anger. I don't really think I was even angry. I think I might have been more just bold and courageous. I had this feeling, or it could have even just been the Spirit of God giving me the boldness and the courage to just preach the word, like without any like limitations. Like he was just kind of just giving me the power to just preach the word. And I remember storming off, and I don't think I was upset, but it was something that drove me to storm off like that. And I remember walking outside. I was poor. I was aware in the dream that I wasn't poor at first. I just left everything behind. I was aware that I had kids and they weren't there with me at this time. And I was just all by myself. Everything and everybody was gone. Something drove me to just storming off. I had the wherewithal to just not care about the life that I had at first. And in this time, it was the end of the world pretty much. Everything the Bible talked about how it would be in the book of Revelation is exactly how it was in this dream. And I do not recall a rapture taking place that took the church out of the world before tribulation happened. And at this time, when I had the dream, I was very new in my faith. I probably had been saved like 4 months or something like that, like 3 or 4 months. I was so new in my faith to where I didn't even know the Bible. And the Lord gave me a dream about things that actually did take place in the Bible that I never even heard before. All the Christians were actually still on the planet at this time. And this was around the time of the Great Tribulation. This was around the time when the mark of the beast was actually here. And I kind of believe that's why I was poor, because I chose not to do it. And I can't even really say that I remember the mark of the beast in the dream. I just knew that a bunch of so-called believers were going the wrong way. They were falling away from the faith. And the reason why they was because the government was really tightening up on biblical views and biblical values, because it was frustrating their plans and their agendas and things like that. Like, there were things that they wanted to put in the law that the so-called fundamental Christians, or the so-called radical Christians or whatnot, just wasn't fitting into. After time went by, I can see exactly why they would ever decide to tighten up on us. But I remember in the dream that they were trying to make us turn our Bibles in. And the so-called brothers and sisters who was in the churches and stuff like that I knew, I don't recognize them at all. I can't pick out faces and say, yeah, brother so-and-so was in that dream. But I was aware that I knew them in real life. I'm like, I know these people, but I can't go back to that dream and say that was him, and her, if you know what I'm saying. And they were trying to get me, like, they were trying to tell me that I was basically doing wrong by not turning my Bible in. And all Bibles were being confiscated. And if you still wanted to be in ministry, and if you still wanted to participate in an organized church fellowship, mainly the 501c or whatever, like you call it, just like, the church buildings, if you still wanted to participate in a church building, then like you wasn't allowed to know what the original Bible even said. Like, you actually had to participate in this whole new system that they were having going on. And I remember them changing everything in the Bible, and they were changing everything about all supernatural works of God and made it all about science. And they were trying to basically downplay the power of God and make it all some kind of a science or something like that. I don't even know exactly how it was working. I just knew that the Bible was changed and all supernatural works of God was made out to be science. And I was preaching against all of this. And the people that was against me the most was the so-called brothers and sisters in the churches that I've grown up in. Like, in the dream, it was people I knew. So I can't even really say it was the churches I've grown up in. Maybe I haven't even met these people yet. I don't know. But I just knew that in the dream I knew them, and they were all against me, and they were telling me that I wasn't serving the right God, and they were serving the living God, and blah blah blah, and this and that and this and that, and they were all trying to withstand me. And it was people, like just walking around demon possessed, and it was a lot of stuff wrong with people at this time. It could have been the mark of the beast that was out here. It could have just been a lot of demonic activity. It was something that was going on that a lot of people was trying to look for answers for. And I was preaching the word. I had nothing but a Bible and a stick in my hand. I had some kind of a stick thing. And with this stick thing, it was something that God used to allow me to be able to do supernatural things, but not necessarily good things. A lot of these things, if the wrong person told it to you, they would say that I was doing bad things with it. But in all honesty, when a person is withstanding you and trying to get you to stop preaching the gospel, then you being able to have power to cause plagues to happen to certain people and stuff like that is essentially a good thing when other people's soul is being put on the line. All of these like religious people, every time they would oppose me and tell me that I wasn't allowed to preach out of the Bible, I wasn't allowed to talk about Jesus, I wasn't allowed to heal people because I was like misrepresenting God. And I don't really know what was going on with them, but as far as I remembered, we all learned from the same Bible. Like, we all used to praise and worship the same exact Jesus. And I just don't know what happened with them. Like something changed about them to where they just became something different, and they believed something different, but they were still a part of what you would actually think was like supposed to be the Christian religion. But they all worship somebody who they thought was God, but it wasn't the real God out of the Bible, or at least out of the original Bible. But the Bibles they had, it was God. And the Bible that we had before, like it wasn't. You know what I mean? And like, you know, I was being hunted down by these people, and they were really trying to do their due diligence to try to get the government on me, or the authorities, or the police, whoever it was. And every time one of them would stand up against me, I would cause something to happen to them. Like, a lot of people died. A lot of people just broke out in disease. Some people went blind. Some people lost their jobs and things like that. I was just able to bring destruction to these people's lives for standing against me, for trying to do the work of God. But to them, I was not doing the work of God because it was a different person to them. And like, it was people really being saved. I mean, it was a lot of demons being cast out of people. It was a lot of people being healed, even resurrected from the dead. And they were just trying to get me to bow to this new religious system that they were a part of, because a lot of them just really wanted to keep their jobs as ministers and deacons and worship leaders and school teachers and all sorts of stuff. And they were trying to really make me believe that I was doing something wrong for not worshiping God their way, or the God who they called God. I don't remember an antichrist in this dream. Only thing I remember was it was the tribulation time. I mean, people were really being jailed and like hunted down for not bowing to this new system. But I was getting by, and I don't remember being harmed or hurt or anything. In fact, I was doing the harming and hurting when someone opposed me for trying to do the work of God. It wasn't just because I was just out here just doing stuff to people, but every time someone stood in my way, the Spirit of God in me would strike at them. I remember having this group of people that always followed me everywhere I went. And as I went further doing the work of the Lord, the group of people got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the people that did not like it the most were the used to be Christians who still thought that they were doing the work of the Lord. The government wasn't really that concerned yet, until they kept pressing the issue to make them concerned. And it was them pressing the issue that turned the government against us, even though they were already against us. I mean, they couldn't do everything. Like, we were just wilderness kinds of people, The world was just a bunch of chaos. Society was just not structured at all. Everything was just like in some kind of collapse. So like, I really don't think the Antichrist had rose to power yet, even though he might have been revealed. He just might not have. I can't even really say how all of this was. It's just that like, society wasn't what it was right now. Everything was just, it was partly collapsed and partly structured. It's like in some parts of society, it was a new society, and then in certain parts of society, everything was just still trying to be put together, as if it was in the middle of some kind of transition. And every time these religious leader people would try to stand up against us, we would have the power and authority to do harm to them as we pleased. I'll be honest, like, we didn't just, like, go and seek out fights. Like, we didn't go and pick out demon fights or nothing like that. All we wanted to do was try to save as many people as we can before this was all over, because we knew it was all over. But everybody else just kind of thought that this was just getting ready to go on and go on and go on. And it wasn't. Like, it was the absolute end, and nobody believed it. And I woke up from the dream, and the people that did believe it were people who were getting saved during that time, and they knew something wasn't right. That's why they were turning to God. But like, most of people that call themselves Christians today went the wrong way. And not only did they go the wrong way, they were the biggest enemy against the people that were going the right way. As time went by in my life, I realized that that is exactly what will more than likely happen, because I started to observe, a lot of stuff in the world, and man, it's just crazy. Like, this isn't a debate of pre-tribulation rapture, or mid-tribulation rapture, or anything like that. All I can say is that if you look in the Bible don't talk about the church disappearing off the face of the earth before tribulation happened. Because if that was the case, there would not have to be a great tribulation against the saints. The Bible do talk about how the beast was given power to overcome the saints. And if that was the case, if we were supposed to disappear off the face of the earth before we went through tribulation, then the Bible was just not telling the truth about the beast being given power to overcome the saints. And I'd rather believe what the Bible said than what some pet doctrine that popped up out of nowhere not that long ago says. So like, I want people to understand that, like, when people have the idea that we will just vanish off the face of the earth before things get bad, they're separating, they're setting themselves up to not be prepared for things to get bad. And they're going to try to follow after what will make their lives better. When people come to God with this idea of, he's going to give me the best life I ever had, they're preparing themselves to not be able to withstand the test and trials of what will come against people that call themselves believers. I don't really know if anybody know this, but anybody that call themselves Christian, whether they're real or not, to the world, we're all the same. But to real believers, we know that we're not all the same, but the world don't look at us any different. The world don't even know how to separate Catholic from Christian. So of course the world is not going to know how to separate false Christian from real Christian. So, according to the world, we were all the same. But it was a great division between us It was the separation of the sheep and the goat. It was the separation of the wheat and the tares. It was a great division between us because most of them followed the way of the world because they wanted to escape having to endure the hardship that was going to come upon the whole world and test everybody's faith. And there was also a great division between us because a lot of people believe that, like you could essentially do whatever you want and you belong to God anyway. I don't really know how people look at it, but a lot of people look at it like, as long as you quote unquote get saved, then you can pretty much do whatever you want and you would never be able to lose your salvation, even if you took the mark of the beast, even if you worship the Antichrist, even if you denied the validity of the Bible or anything. All you got to do is just call yourself a child of God and participate in the church, and that's just it. I can see right now that like those kinds of false doctrines entering into the church and entering into Christianity is setting people up to A, follow after the wrong God, and B, not be prepared to count the cost when it's time to actually count the biggest cost of your life. All it's going to take is for one decision to send you to hell for eternity, and it's all being set up in a person's frame of mind by what they think following God or being a child of God is all about. And I want people to know one important thing. Do not believe any pet doctrine that's taught to you about what people say is going to happen to the church in the end times, unless it lines up exactly with what the Bible say. Everything the book of Revelation talk about, line up those pet doctrines such as the rapture. I'm not saying that the rapture won't happen. I'm not saying that there won't be a rapture or when there will be one. I'm just saying that I didn't see the church disappearing off the face of the earth before the Antichrist or before the world system and the religious organizations turned their back on us and tried to get us hunted down by the authorities. I didn't really see us disappearing before hardship happened. I just didn't. I mean, like, some people just weren't here anymore. I mean, some people, like had a chance to check out early. Some people might have died in certain tragic events and things like that. I mean, Lord bless their heart. But, for the vast majority of everybody, was still here, like believer or unbeliever, like believer, false believer, or unbeliever. Most people were still here. And I want people to check their hearts and see why do you call yourself a child of God? Like, what was that driving force behind why you believed or why you thought that you made the decision to go and get saved? Like, was it because you wanted God to give you a better life? Was it because you wanted a blessing? Was it because you just grew up in church and that was just the thing and religion is what you do? Was it because you just wanted your soul saved? Was it because you just wanted God to be God of your life because you were tired of trying? Really just sit back and figure out why you came to Christ and see if it line up with you being able to count the cost or not. Because if why you came to Christ is going to conflict with you being able to count the cost, well, then you might want to go back and rebuild that foundation or rebuild that whole little idea up in your head all over again, because we enter in a time when it's going to cost you a whole lot to follow Christ. It's going to cost a lot of people jobs, wealth, influence, reputation, families, friends. And if you came to Christ because you want God to bless you with the best life you can ever have, I want you to know that you came to Christ for things that will not last. And when God decides to not give you those things, are you going to turn back to the world, or are you going to stay with Christ? If God decides today that he's going to make you poor because you came to him for wealth, will you then go and follow a different God, or will you just turn back to the world, or will you say, God is God and I'll never leave his side because I have nowhere else to go, because I can't forsake the Lord who bought me. I mean, God, he tried me in a whole lot of these areas. It cost me a whole lot to follow Christ. And then even in the midst of me following Christ, I'm still sitting back, taking loss after loss after loss, going through battles in my mind against these oppressing spirits trying to influence me to just turn back. God will make me promises and things like that, and then the total opposite will start happening. And these oppressing spirits will just try to tell me all these blasphemous things about God, trying to sucker me into turning back. And I've been tried over and over and over and over and over in these areas. A lot of people don't know that I was even going through things like that. Like just being tried over and over and over with these dark, depressing thoughts hitting me, just constantly hitting me. I'm sitting here going through the biggest battle of my whole life, and nobody even knows that's what's going on. I want people to know that, like, stuff like that could possibly happen to you. Like, you can get fired, like put out of your house, and lose all your friends and family all in the same day, and you will essentially have nothing. Will you turn your back on God and say, this ain't for me? If you lost everything because you stood for what was right, like, would you say to yourself in your heart, doing what's right is failing me? It's real easy to say, I don't want this anymore because I'm losing everything over this. You will have those thoughts in your head, but what will you actually do when the decision is presented to you? If you would only just go back to the world, you wouldn't have to be poor right now. Only reason you going through this is because you're trying to seek after some promise God gave you. Only reason you poor right now is because you're trying to do what you thought God wanted you to do. Those things is gonna happen, man. Those things is really gonna happen, and you gotta have that in you to say, no, I'm not going back. No, I'm not compromising with the world. No, I'm not denying the Lord. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna take the mark. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna believe what they trying to get me to believe. I'm not gonna sucker down to somebody telling me that I'm not allowed to preach the gospel unless I be fired or kicked out or anything. And all of that had a whole lot to do with what I saw in that dream. Most people who called themselves Christians were really not. All they were tares sown amongst the wheat. And they were leading a lot of people astray because they were threatening. Like, they were actually making threats, dude. People that claim to serve God was threatening people. If you dare talk about Jesus again. And these were supposed to be church people. And that's exactly what they were church people. Threatening to have the authorities called on me for talking about the Bible, dude. And because I didn't want to turn my Bible in and go get the new one. And I can say right now, if you listen to this dream, just sit back and watch. I'm not telling you to believe this dream. I'm just telling you to sit back and watch and observe. Eat what you want from what I'm saying and spit out whatever you don't want to hear. But all I'm saying is to just think about this. I'm just saying to really think about this and really count the cost. And really sit back and ask yourself, are you actually a child of God, or are you just a religious person? Because it's really getting ready to cost you to be a child of God. And it's also going to cost you to be a religious person. I mean, basically, every man will have to pay a cost. at some point in time in their life. It could either cost you your life, it could cost you your lifestyle, or it can cost you your soul. I mean, but you only got one way out of this. One way out of this is a decision. Like, you either gonna follow the true and living God or you not. Like, there is no in between. There is no, well, I'm gonna do what I want in my life and I'm gonna just come to church and appease my conscience and make my conscience believe that I'm doing what's right because I'm sitting in the seat, or because I'm paying a tithe, or because I tune in to Bible studies. And I mean, like essentially, like, none of that is actually wrongdoing. It's not a replacement for actually being a righteous man. If you believe that the rapture is going to happen before the tribulation, by all means, believe it. But also prepare for it to not happen too. So either way, keep yourself bold in the spirit and keep yourself close to God, just in case it don't work out the way you think it will. I'm keeping myself open for possibilities in case this dream is leading me wrong. But all I'm saying is, when I woke up from this dream, I felt so different and I could never forget it. Never. And ever since I had it, it seemed to be more and more right. Not to mention that I didn't even know that that's how it worked out for Jesus. Jesus was crucified by religious people who claimed to follow God, but they didn't follow the real God the real way. I mean, they claimed to follow the real one, just not in his way. I mean, the church in Acts was being persecuted by quote unquote religious leaders. It was all working out that way. And I just didn't know about the Bible when I had this dream. And when I started to study the Bible as the months and stuff like that went by, I'm like, that had to be from God. Had to be from God, because the whole book of Acts, but the book of Revelation, played out in a dream. And I don't even know what it said. I mean, come on, man. And I don't have no reason to make this up or lie about this. I have none. I'm going to have to answer to God for putting this out. So, and because I know that I'm trying to be real careful about what I say all the time, because everything I do will be answerable to God. Everything. So stuff like this, I have no reason to fabricate some kind of story or anything like that. And God, he slowly but surely just started to reveal to me that that dream was legitimate. And all I'm saying is this. Just because I'm saying that I believe it's legitimate, I'm telling you that it's just food for thought for you, and just keep thinking about what I'm saying. I'm not telling you to believe me. I'm not telling you to make some big lifestyle change because of it or nothing like that. All I'm saying is, personally, like, just count the cost, study the Bible, and test everything that somebody tell you with the scriptures. Everything. Every single last thing someone tell you, test it with the scriptures and see if that's true. And then go to God and ask him to show you. And he'll show you. He'll start pointing out scriptures. He'll start bringing stuff out of your memory and say, remember that thing right there that happened in the Bible? Yeah, this is kind of like that right there. But anyways, brothers and sisters and everybody, I don't really want to make this more longer than it should be. I have people out here looking at me funny and stuff like that. I got microphones and stuff like that set up in my car, so I don't really want to be some kind of disturbance out here. So other than that, brothers and sisters, please keep me in your prayer, because I will continue to count the cost. Things will continue to happen in my life that's going to make me pure, or it's going to, look, I can either come out of this fire completely in pieces, or I can come out purified as gold. But the thing is that we will all go through the fire, all of us. So if any of you need prayer, just leave it in the comments and just say, hey, keep me in your prayers. I'll keep you in my prayers too. I pray that everybody have a good week, a good day or whatever. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Thanks for tuning in.